Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. This is one that's long overdue. It's a contest entry for my buddy Alex over at Beer and Vinyl. Everybody knows Alex. He has the fastest growing channel on YouTube. And he's a man with a lot of records and a lot of knowledge. And is a good friend of mine. So Alex, this is for you, Mr. Beer and Vinyl. He wants us to talk about our favorite year in music to celebrate his 1 year here on YouTube. 1 year, he's over 800 subscribers. He's got that touch. Um, and this was a tough one for me because I remember Alex was kind of throwing this idea around before it came out, and he was like, "I'm thinking about doing a contest for my favorite year in music. What would your favorite year in music be off the top of your head?" And at the time, I said 1966 because my favorite album of all time is Pet Sounds by the Beach Boys, and then you have Revolver by the Beatles, and then you have Blonde on Blonde by Bob Dylan. So like huge records. But the more I thought about it, the more I was thinking, well, Blonde on Blonde isn't necessarily one of my favorite Dylan albums. Revolver is not my favorite Beatles record. So I'm basing this entirely off of the fact that Pet Sounds came out in 1966. So I did a little bit of, digging. I was watching some of the other video entries that came in. There were some years that I was like, I really don't want to do that year because it feels like everybody has picked it. And this is one of those years, and that is 1969. The more I thought about it, the more videos I watched, the more records that I saw, the more I realized 1969 is the best year in music. And I'm going to show you why. So several of these records are in my top 100 of all time. That in itself is like great. And then some of these are just records that I keep, that I go back to a lot, and they're just solid records. Now, obviously, I'm not talking about every record that came out. I'm missing a lot of the records, like the top, records like Santana came out. A couple of Miles Davis records came out. Frank Zappa, for you Zappa people. Velvet Underground, all that stuff. There's a lot of stuff out there. So I'm talking about what I have, what I like. And that's it. So just a couple of kind of honorable mentions slash records that I just like a lot. I'll start here. This is Johnny Cash live at San Quentin. It's the second of his so-called prison records. The other one being, of course, the more well-known Live at Folsom. This one is equally as good. Some people might say it's better. This has the great track, Wanted Man, which technically is a Bob Dylan song, though it was credited as Cash Dylan with the songwriter credit. But it's got great stuff. Starkville City Jail is great. Big River, I Still Miss Someone. Wreck of the Old 97, Daddy Sang Bass. Just so many great songs from 1969, Live at San Quentin by Johnny Cash. Check it out if you don't know it. Next, the band, the Brown album. This is the second band album. A lot of people consider it their masterpiece. Can't argue with them. I mean, the hits on here, you have Across the Great Divide, Rag Mama Rag, The Night They Drove Old Dixie Down, possibly Robbie Robertson's best song. Up on Cripple Creek, Unfaithful Servant, just a beautiful Rick Danko song. King Harvest Has Surely Come, and then some great deeper cuts. But the band, the Brown album, this was one of those records that revolutionized music and kind of, was the shift toward what the 70s would bring us with, the songwriting movement, the James Taylors, the Neil Youngs, Bob Dylan going into his 70s phase with, Blood on the Tracks, things like that. This is one of those records that, really moved that acoustic sound, that organic sound forward. So the band, the Brown album from 1969. Another one of those just great records, The Gilded Palace of Sin by the Flying Burrito Brothers. Now, this was a group who were formed after Graham Parsons left the Byrds. Graham Parsons right here, who, kind of revolutionized the country rock movement with that California sound, the Emmylou Harris's, even like the Rolling Stones. He was hanging out with Keith Richards, really influenced their sound a bit. You have Chris Hillman, who left the Byrds after the Sweetheart of the Rodeo album, which was also Graham Parsons' one and only Byrds record. And then you have Sneaky Pete, what's his name? Sneaky Pete Barlow. Chris Etheridge is on here. Shoot. Sneaky something. I'm getting there. Give me just a second. Sneaky Pete. Yeah, anyway, he's sneaky. Go to the Palace of Sin. Check out the song Sin City. Check out the song Christine's Tune. Wheels is great. This is a great kind of country cosmic rock record. Hot Burrito, the Flying Burrito Brothers, The Gilded Palace of Sin. Check it out. Another one of those great songwriters, Townes Van Zandt. Which one is this? This is just the self-titled. But just some great stuff on here. For the Sake of the Song is on here. Waiting Around to Die, fantastic bluesy kind of tune. Colorado Girl, Lungs, I'll Be Here in the Morning is a gorgeous tune. Quicksilver, Daydreams of Maria. This is a fantastic record. This is a reissue from 2007, I believe. But yeah, Townes Van Zandt, you're talking about a songwriter. That guy isn't talked about enough. Speaking of the Stones, I talked about them a second ago. Let It Bleed, again, possibly to some their greatest record. Again, big hit on here. Can't Always Get What You Want. Midnight Rambler, Gimme Shelter. Country Honk, which was kind of like the acoustic-y version of Honky Tonk Women. Let It Bleed, Love in Vain, You Got the Silver, the Keith Richards tune. Again, just a fantastic record. And I believe the last with Brian Jones, even though I think he's only like on a track on this record. But Let It Bleed by the Stones, another good one. Possibly the greatest 1-2 punch of all time. They're my favorite Led Zeppelin records. Led Zeppelin 1 and Led Zeppelin 2 came out in 1969. Now think about that. You have Led Zeppelin cranking out tunes like Good Times, Bad Times, Communication Breakdown, I Can't Quit You, Baby, Babe, I'm Gonna Leave You, Dazed and Confused, all on this record. And then just a few months later, they put out Led Zeppelin 2, which has Whole Lot of Love on it, the Lemon Song, Heartbreaker, Livin' Lovin' Maid, Ramble On, Bring It On Home, Moby Dick. I mean, good gracious. They put out 2 banger records, and again, my favorite of the Led Zeppelin records, even more so than Led Zeppelin 4, which is the big one. So Led Zeppelin cranking out 2 in 1969. All right, and these last 4 here are ones that make their way into my favorites of all time of any record. I'm going to start with my man Nick Drake here. This is 5 Leaves Left, the first of his 3 records. Came out on Island. This has the fantastic tune Riverman, Saturday Sun, Fruit Tree, cello song, Time Has Told Me, 3 Hours, Day Is Done. Just, it's so, so good. If you like, music that sounds like fall, if you want to hear, a precursor to guys like, Jeff Buckley, Elliott Smith, Nick Drake is your guy. And just a tragic tale from his life. One of those guys that nobody knows a whole lot about. But you also have Richard Thompson on there from Fairport Convention playing on some guitar. Next, we're going to go with this. This is the half-speed remaster of Tommy by The Who from 1969. Pete Townshend's, one of his 3 or 4 masterpieces that he came out with. Again, The Who was cranking out a ton of songs in their heyday. Just like a lot of those British Invasion guys, where albums were being pushed, and Pete was somebody who was so creative and had so much output that this album is it's a wonder that this thing got out. Obviously a rock opera concept record. It was made into a movie a few years later with Roger Daltrey as the title character. But this has Pinball Wizard on it. This has See Me, Feel Me, which is part of the We're Not Gonna Take It tune. The overture and the underture are awesome to hear. 1921, Amazing Journey is great. Christmas, that's a great tune. But just a really, really great record. Is the story a little bit spotty? Yeah, there's some holes in it. But as a record, this thing just plays so well. I've loved this record since the first time I heard it, and it's continued to grow on me. So Tommy by The Who. My favorite Who record as well. Next, you got to talk about this guy right here, Bob Dylan, with his very cheeky looking smile there. This is Nashville Skyline from 1969. Very cool. It's one of those records that, you know, no album art, no title or name on the front. People look at him, and you might have to second guess, like, is that Bob Dylan? He looks happy. You know, a lot of times Bob Dylan was moody at this time. He had put out, you know, the folk records in the early 60s, then his trilogy of electric albums. He looked kind of, raggedy on John Wesley Harding, which was kind of a precursor to this album. But this has the massive hit Lay Lady Lay. It has a duet with Johnny Cash doing Girl from the North Country, which had shown up on the Freewheelin' Bob Dylan. You also have One More Night, which is probably my favorite deep cut on the record. To Be Alone with You, Tonight I'll Be Staying Here with You, Tell Me That It's Not, That It Isn't True. Just fantastic. I mean, you have Norman Blake playing Pete Drake, Charlie McCoy, Kenny Buttrey, Charlie Daniels is on here playing bass. Obviously Charlie Daniels, who had his own career, but Nashville Skyline, it's Bob Dylan singing, you know, crooner kind of country, and it's fantastic. Love that record more than most people, and it's Bob Dylan's shortest record. And then, of course, 1969, my favorite Beatles record, second favorite album of all time after Pet Sounds. This is Abbey Road. I don't need to say anything about this other than it is a absolute masterpiece. I would not change a single thing on it. And that's why, Alex, 1969 is the best year in music, why it's my favorite year in music. And I'm glad I've kind of, you know, reconsidered that, you know, 1966 isn't my favorite. It's 1969. So there you go. Everybody go subscribe to Alex. I'm going to have his channel link below. I think the contest ends here in just really a few hours. But anyway, y'all be good. Take care. And we'll see you in the next one. Bye. Bye. Bye, y'all. There you go.